What is happening, everybody? It is MLB Live Before Lock. I was away for most of the week. Had my birthday, hung out with my family, and it was nice. Got a couple days, which I've never done before. I've never taken a few days off. Did it this week, and now really excited because I come back. It's Friday night. I'm working with Matt Belman. Him and I, we've been DMing a good amount over the course of the last couple of weeks. Been trying to get him on more shows when we have times available. And today, I'm doing my first ever show with him. So I've been looking forward to that, and hopefully you guys have as well. So as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we have a great offer for you guys as well. If you've not taken advantage of the deal going on at Caesars right now, don't know how long this deal is going to be around for, and you guys should be taking advantage of it if you haven't already, because it's free money, and you should always take advantage of free money when you have the opportunity, because when you sign up at Caesars, using the link that we have below, your first bet, you place $50, and they're going to give you $250 in bonus bets paid out in $50 increments, one $50 free bet per week leading up to the NFL season. So go check out Caesars, sign up using that link below. Take advantage of some free money, right? You wouldn't leave free money if it was just sitting on the ground and you're walking past it on the street, and this is that kind of opportunity. The deal isn't going to be around for long. Take advantage of Caesars. They are sponsoring our show today. Matt, what's happening, man?
Nothing, man. Happy to be on here with you. Like you said, we've been talking for a while. Supposed to be in Philly this weekend, but honestly, I'd rather be here with you. So excited to break this slate down with you.
Yeah, so for those of you who didn't know, Matt is going to be at the live final, but he has decided that instead of going there, the sole reason that he didn't go there is just because he wanted to do the show with you guys on Friday night. No other reason. Just he was that excited to present you guys all the information for tonight's slate. We're going to be breaking down the usual stuff, top pitchers, favorite stacks. We'll build some lineups in the MLB lineup generator. We'll talk DraftKings. We'll talk FanDuel. If you guys have any questions for us, I'll be answering them in the Discord channel. If you guys just at me so I could see those messages, we'll hit on any of those questions. One of the perks being a Stochastic Plus Platinum member is you get into our Discord channel. And for everybody who wants to know, I got a bidet for my birthday. This is very exciting news for me, Matt. I don't know if you're a man. I don't know if you've used a bidet. I don't know if you're a man who's into bidets. Go ahead.
I have a big take on this because I heard this yesterday when it was brought up. Did you get – so, yeah, I mean, I think a bidet is a huge – I wouldn't say necessity, but a huge lifestyle upgrade. Yes. But did you get like an actual bidet or something that goes on your toilet?
I got a toilet seat attachment.
Yes, exactly. That's the way to go. Like, you don't want a whole nother like toilet installed. I know that's what they were talking about yesterday. I don't think they were keen on the toilet installed one. What's funny is my mom and dad are in Chicago right now visiting my sister, and they have toilet installs. But he sends a picture to me and my wife and is like, "Do you guys have this? I'm going to get one. Do you want one too?" And I said, "It would make my life if you got one for us." The problem is we don't have a outlet in our bathroom, so that's why we don't currently have one. But yeah, heard you got one. Really, really happy for you. Should make big improvements in your life. The next thing you need is a squatty potty if you don't already have it.
Had a squatty potty, wasn't a massive favorite. Wasn't a big fan of that. The bidet, though, I like the bidet. I studied abroad in Italy one year. I've wanted a bidet ever since then. Here's the problem, though, is I think part of it's me and my personality, the way I presented. Every single birthday, holiday for the ever since I graduated college in 2013, I've requested a bidet, and everybody thinks I'm joking, so I never get it. And now part of the issue also, I said this the other day, is once you get older, it's really hard to ask for gifts, because if you want something, you just go and buy it, right? Like we're adults. You could just buy the own shit that you want. And what ends up happening, though, is if you request something as a birthday present, now you're obligated to not buy it, even if you want it, because somebody's going to get it for you. So I've been saying I want a bidet for the longest time. Everybody thinks I'm joking, but it's the only thing I ever asked for. So I never end up getting one. And then this year, it finally happened. My mom got me a bidet for my birthday. So big times, going to be clean assholes all around my asshole, all around my household. Nothing but clean assholes. And very excited about that. Not as excited as I am for actually, I was going to say not as excited as I am for this baseball slate, but that would be a flat out lie, because the bidet is really the most exciting thing in my life right now. But Matt, let's start breaking down this baseball slate. And if you guys could do it and you haven't yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also one other thing, if you guys haven't subscribed to our podcast channel yet, we're going to have some podcast exclusive content coming for the football season. So once football starts, we're going to have some shows that only go on the podcast channel. So go subscribe to Stochastic Daily Fantasy Podcast Network so that you guys get all that stuff sent right to your phone. But let's go.
I got one more question, though.
Yes, go ahead.
About the bidet. Because you were going to say, when I asked you at first if it was the toilet installed, like the seat attachment, you said yes, because, and you were going to go somewhere with that. Where were you going with that?
Yes. So I was going to say that there wasn't really a good place to do like the actual installment of one that was in there.
It's not practical.
Is I was going to bring up, because you had also said the power outlet situation.
Mm-hmm.
One, I have something similar where the closest power outlet's kind of like across my bathroom to the toilet. This one, it's called Tushy, and doesn't require an outlet. And
interesting.
I haven't installed it yet, but I'm going to do that tonight. Project.
Love the name also.
And I'll full reviews for everybody once it's all set up. Baseball slate now. I know some people want us to talk about baseball. Spencer Strider, I think we should start by talking about him. And I'm trying to center this on the screen. I'll try not to move shit around too much. I'm producing the show today, guys. My first time producing the show while I'm also hosting. So I'm going to try to keep these scrolling to a minimum so I don't give you all vertigo while you're watching the show. But let's start by talking about Spencer Strider. He is the most expensive pitcher on the entire slate. We'll talk about the DraftKings and FanDuel pitchers a little bit differently, especially on a slate like this. I think who we want to target on the different sites is going to be a little bit different. But starting on DK, where we have Spencer Strider, the most expensive pitcher on the slate by a mile, $12,800, also projected for nearly 30% ownership, so he's also going to be really popular. How do you view him in large field tournaments, Matt? Is he somebody you want to be at the field to, underweight to the field to, or overweight to at this 30%-ish ownership mark?
Probably around the field. He's a really hard guy to be like, oh, I'm just going to like fade him because he's got such a built-in floor with his strikeout upside. I don't love the spot. I don't love facing the Giants. It's obviously a great ballpark. I don't love that he just saw the Giants in his last start, but he's by far the best DFS pitcher in baseball with his, built-in strikeout stuff. So I don't love him here, but I also don't think his salary is that prohibitive to where it's hard to fit, depending on what offenses you like. He's not like a priority to me though, because there's other really good pitching options on this slate that are quite a bit cheaper. So I think he looks good here. Again, I wouldn't recommend anyone full fade him, but he's not a guy I think you need to just jam in and move on. How do you see it?
Pretty much the same. I have my lineups all set, ready to go, ran them through our Sims tool, and I got nearly identical exposure to Spencer Strider that the field has. I have him in 28% of my lineup. So, just a little bit short of the 29.5% mark, but it kind of echoes what you said, where it's, the ownership seems to be about appropriate. And that's what a lot of our data and tools indicate. We have him as the most likely pitcher to be a top scoring pitcher on the slate, 27.7% chance to be a top 2 scoring pitcher, which is really right in line with what his ownership is. So I think that he's very fairly owned in cash games. I think we could have the discussion about, do we want to jam him into cash games? For me, the answer is yes. I would go to him for sure in cash games on DraftKings. And there's enough cheap pitchers as well that I think that it's not all that hard to fit Spencer Strider into cash games. For tournaments, there are some expensive offenses that I like to stack, and Strider does make that a little bit difficult. So I'm going to be about 30% with Strider, holding hands with the field. I have some other spots I'm differentiating with at pitcher. As far as cash games go, are you on the same page as me? If somebody's building a cash game, you just play Strider today?
Yeah, just because he's going to be the highest. Well, right there is the highest owned pitcher, and his strikeout stuff makes it almost impossible to win if he has an upside game and you don't have him. Just to say how I'm playing tonight, I'm only playing 3 lineups. I'm playing in the 250 max and the 888. I'm using Strider once out of 3, so I'm right at the field.
Yeah, so it seems like we're doing the same thing here with Strider, you and I. And then if we move down the list, we've got a next group of pitchers that are picking up some ownership. We've got Kodai Senga. He is at 9,600. He's projected for 21% ownership. Dylan Cease at 8,900. He's projected for 22% ownership. Both of them are in pretty good spots. Kodai Senga, we know about the strikeout upside. He's also been really inconsistent this year. He's got a matchup against the Angels. And this Angels team, are they falling apart down the stretch of the season? Can you believe that they're still running Ohtani out there? What's the point now?
Yeah, the only thing I can make of it, and someone else asked me this, is it's got to be his call. He's just saying that he's playing, and they're just adhering to whatever he says.
It's at a certain point, I think he has to be I don't know who's making these decisions. The Angels have a terrible track record of managing players' injuries, though. And to the point where, Mike Trout comes back. Apparently his wrist wasn't fully healed. So he has the broken hamate bone. He has surgery. Comes out. He plays 1 game and goes back on the injured list with soreness the next day. Shohei Ohtani, how many starts has he had in the second half of the season where he's had to leave early because of cramps, because of fatigue, and they still go him out there to pitch? He ends up coming away with an injury, tears his UCL. The point being, Kodai Senga, anyways, against this Angels team that presumably doesn't really have a ton to play for at this point of the year, even if they're still running guys out when it's ill-advised. So Kodai Senga, he has a lot of strikeout upside in this spot against the Angels. We got Dylan Cease in a good matchup against the Oakland A's. Between the two of these pitchers, who both have a lot of strikeout upside, but have at times underwhelmed this year, do you have a preference between Cease and Senga?
I do. I like Cease more because I like the matchup a lot more. I think, like you said, similar pitchers and how volatile they can be. Senga is certainly in better form at the moment. He's pitching well right now. I still respect this Angels lineup a hell of a lot more than the A's, though. This is a really good spot for Cease if he can keep the ball in the zone, which is always a problem for him. I know the weather's hot there, but price considered and ownership considered, Cease is my personal favorite pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, so he isn't my overall most rostered pitcher or anything like that. But with that said, between Senga and Cease, I do prefer Cease. Cease is also in my single entry lineup for today. So even though I'm playing 150 max, I also have my lineup that I play in single entry that I ultimately do have the most money rotting on that one lineup. And Cease is in that one. Love the match from him against the Oakland A's. Love the price point as well at $8,900. He's somebody, if you play him, he really enables you to get up to a stack like the Dodgers that I really like today. We'll talk more about stacks in a little bit, but it is hard to just go like Strider, Dodgers stacks. I could tell you guys to do that, but you need like a cheat code in terms of making the salary work. This is how you make it work. You go to a Senga or a Cease instead of Strider to stack a team like the Dodgers. Cease is my preferred option there. And if you can make it work in cash games, my preferred combination is going to be Strider and Cease and going cheap at pitcher. Is that the same for you, assuming you said that you would like Strider in cash games, and then also you said Cease is your favorite pitcher overall on the slate?
So, yes, but I also like Strider. Like Cease is the guy for me. I like Strider, but I also like Woodruff at his ownership. I also like Bryce Miller at his, price and ownership. So Strider looks like similar to me, all things considered, than those other guys that I mentioned. So I do think that, like, if I were making one lineup right now, it would be Cease, and I'm not sure if it would be Strider, Woodruff, or Bryce Miller. All three of those guys, I think, make a lot of sense for different reasons.
If you had to pick one of these guys to pivot,
Strider.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
No. I'm saying, like, if you have to pivot to one of these lower owned expensive options. So we've got Woodruff, you mentioned, he's 7% owned. We've got Logan Webb, brutal matchup. Logan Webb against the Atlanta Braves, 9% owned. Bryce Miller, still picking up some ownership here at 19%. But if you had to go to one of these guys as a pivot off of the Strider, the Senga, the Cease ownership, what would be your option of these other somewhat expensive pitchers that also have upside?
For me, it's definitely Woodruff there. Our tools just back that up. So I'm a big Woodruff fan. He's coming in, Strider is far and away. It's almost like the Braves on offense on most nights, not tonight, but on most nights, where he's just far and away, the best pitcher in our tools. After that, it's, kind of muddied. You've got Senga, Cease, Woodruff, Webb. Woodruff's not getting any ownership. And do I love the matchup with San Diego? No. This is a team that's underperformed all years. Lineup is jam-packed with righties. The lefties in there aren't very good. I like Woodruff here a lot, coming off a pretty poor performance for his standards. So like him to bounce back here. I'm not saying that I think he outscores Strider here, because Strider's strikeout upside, as we talked about, but I wouldn't be blown away if that happened.
Yeah, and I know what you mean. It's just in terms of, you look at Brandon Woodruff, he's one of our most positively leveraged pitcher in the top pitchers. By the way, if you guys want access to any of these tools, sign up using the link below. You sign up for the first time, you're going to get 50% off. Sign up for a platinum package, get you access to all of the tools we have for every sport, or the MLB package to get access to our stuff like the lineup generator, to get access to our player projections, ownership projections. But yeah, to what you were saying there, I mean, we've got Brandon Woodruff, who doesn't have the same projection as Spencer Strider, but here's where I agree with you and what the difference is. Spencer Strider in our projections is going to outscore Brandon Woodruff about 2-1, right? He is a 27.7% chance to be a top scoring pitcher, whereas Brandon Woodruff 12.6%. So if it's just who scores more fantasy points, yeah, I'm picking Spencer Strider over Brandon Woodruff, but we have him outscoring him 2-1, where the ownership is 4-1. So that kind of mind, we're thinking about leverage in large field tournaments. I understand where it is that you're coming from.
You just elaborated the point that I was trying to get out, which I struggled with my words. I will say, though, just based on your question, the one guy, just from an ownership perspective and leverage, that does stand out is Hunter Green. First off, when you look at the leverage, he's by far the most leveraged pitcher on the slate. And what I find interesting is his last start was against Toronto. He had missed a bunch of time and came back. I can't remember what day that was on, but he was really popular on a slate with other good pitching options. He was 30% owned against the Blue Jays at home. Now he's 1% at Arizona. Like, I don't like picking on Arizona. They don't strike out a ton and they're good, but neither does Toronto. And the one thing that's really encouraging to me about that start is they let Green ride. I mean, he gave up 5 home runs because they let him throw 100 pitches, even though he was getting blown up. So I think Hunter Green from like a 150 max perspective is really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it the same way as you were looking at the same data in our tools right now. Matchup, not great. So, like, if you guys are building one lineup and it's like a cash game lineup, don't go and play Brandon Woodruff. But large field tournaments, yeah, 7% ownership. I definitely do think that he makes some sort of sense. And it's funny, you talked about the Padres being a team that's underperformed this year. Like, they had a series, what was it, a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago against the Baltimore Orioles. They were a sizable favorite in every single game against the Orioles, where the Padres are a below 500 team. The Orioles have the best record in the American League. It kind of goes to show how the books are really looking at this Padres team, but it does seem like they're going to end up missing the playoffs. Is there anybody that's picking up ownership on the high end do you think doesn't warrant the ownership that they're getting?
Not on the high end, no. I mean, The ownership looks pretty spread out decently enough. Strider would be getting more love, but he's just too expensive to be. So I think it all like shakes out pretty well.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I see it too. There's nothing really all that crazy. I agree with you also. Hunter Green, 1.5% owned. There's some real strikeout upside. And I believe it was Sunday he had that start against the Toronto Blue Jays.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure maybe it was Saturday. It was either Saturday or Sunday, one of those 2 days. And yeah, Hunter Green did get hit around a little bit in that spot. And one thing that I really do think helps him into what you had mentioned, bringing up the pitch count, this is a Reds team that's really fighting for a playoff spot, and they don't really have a lot of wiggle room. They're still playing for something, and they really need to maximize what they get out of all their guys. So Hunter Green, I agree with you. I do think we should see a pretty significant pitch count as long as he didn't get like totally obliterated in some of these.
And he's like their guy. He's like their number one. He's not a number one yet, but he's like their guy. So, again, I don't like love him in this spot, but from the numbers that we're both looking at, he looks like a good leverage play.
Got some questions coming into our Discord channel right now, so we'll read some of these off. Then we'll talk about some of the cheap pitchers, and then we'll hit on FanDuel and some of the pitching options there. First, from our guy Einsteinium, he says, welcome back. Thank you, Einsteinium. Appreciate it. He wants to know, do we like Brady Singer in Seattle today? So Brady Singer, scroll down a little bit to get him on screen. Brady Singer is a cool $6,900, only projected for 3% ownership. What kind of exposure do I have to Brady Singer today? I'm pretty much right in line with the field. I don't have any strong take here. Out of my 150 lineups, I have 3.3% of Brady Singer, so I'm very, very close to the field on him. There's so many good pitching options on the cheap end. We'll talk about some of the popular ones that are coming in here as well. And like you had mentioned a second ago here, Matt, it's really spread out as well. Like, we don't have any pitchers that are projected for north of 30% ownership. As you guys could see on the screen here, this is what this far column is here on the right. This is our ownership projections. At 3.1% ownership, I think he's okay. If you guys are playing 1, 3, 5, 10 lineups, I wouldn't play Singer in any of them. In large field tournaments, he could take shots here or there. I don't really have a strong stance on Brady Singer. Do you?
I have no stance. I have basically no stance at all. Like, things look good, I guess, just to, I could talk about anyone. So the Mariners strike out a lot. So if that's what you want to go with Singer for, I get it. They've also been playing really good baseball. Like, it's not an easy matchup. So there's, red flags. He's cheap. I have, that's my stance is I'm not playing him, but, do your thing if you like him.
Chris Williams in chat wants to know if my birthday is the 23rd. It is. You and I have the same birthday. So shout out to Chris Williams, our friend who works at Apple. So Chris, hope you enjoyed your birthday as well. Some more questions in Discord. Heflove, he is saying clean buttholes rule. I totally agree, my friend. Congrats on the bidet. You will save money on wipes. So, yeah, I mean, bidet is not to harp on the same point again, but you spill something in your rug, spill something in a carpet. How are you cleaning it up? Water? Or are you using just a dry paper towel? Bet you're not using the dry paper towel because it's not cleaning shit. Everybody should be on Team Bidet here. Other question from Heflov. That wasn't really a question. That was more of a comment from him. He wants to know, what is Dane Dunning's ownership looking like today? He's only projected for 1.4% ownership. Nobody's really playing Dane Dunning. Same with me. I'm not really targeting Dane Dunning either. But let's talk about the cheap pitchers that are picking up a good amount of ownership here, Matt, because there are a couple of pitchers that we typically aren't really considering all that much, but they are so cheap today. Brandon Pfaadt is projected for 29% ownership against the Cincinnati Reds. And then we've got Cole Irvin projected for 26.4% ownership. Cole Irvin, not somebody we typically like to target, but he's only 5K, so he's the cheapest starting pitcher on the entire slate for DraftKings. Got a great matchup against the Colorado Rockies. Between Cole Irvin and Brandon Pfaadt, which one do you prefer to save salary with, or is your answer neither?
That's two questions. So my answer is neither, but if I were going to one of them, it would not even a question be Pfaadt. Like, no question for me. If I really liked expensive offenses and needed a cheap pitcher, I'd have no problem playing Pfaadt. Like I said, though, I'm only playing 3 lineups. So just because I'm not playing someone doesn't mean I don't like them. Pfaadt is, right on the outskirts for me, where, like I said, if I were playing a cheap, expensive offense, I'd have no problem with Pfaadt. He's projects to be like a good pitcher. He might not be right now. He's in good form, though. Cole Irvin is just a fill-in guy. I get it because of the price point, but that's just not for me. I actually like the leverage of some Colorado bats, but tell me how you feel about the pitchers first.
I am underweight to the field on Pfaadt. I'm overweight to the field on Cole Irvin right now, and it is for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have Cole Irvin projected for a little bit less ownership. He's also cheaper, and we have better projection on him. We've got better odds for him to be a top value pitcher. We've got better odds for him to be a top scoring pitcher, which obviously go hand in hand. If he's cheaper and we project him better, he's going to have better odds being a top value pitcher. So between the two of them, I think they're going to be both fairly popular, projected for similar ownership. It does seem like Cole Irvin's going to be the little bit less popular of the two. So I'm playing a good amount in large field tournaments. Like I said, I'm a little bit overweight to him. I'm going to be underweight to the field on Brandon Pfaadt. And with Cole Irvin, I'm with you. It's not like this is not a guy that I really ever go out of my way to roster. If you look at his numbers this year, one thing that is at least a little bit of a positive, his strikeout rate is 20.5%, which is elevated over what it's been in previous years. He's got the great matchup against the Colorado Rockies. So for the price point of $5,000, I understand why the field is getting there. I am as well. Are there any cheap pitchers that are not picking up ownership that you like to get to today? Or is it kind of echoing what you had said before when it comes to these pitchers that you just don't really see a need to go cheap for this slate?
I don't personally see a need to go cheap. Those two guys are definitely the guys. And as far as like the Dane Dunnings and Brady Singers of the world, I just don't think you need to go in that range. So just to touch on like your Irvin versus Pfaadt, like points that you made, I completely agree with you. If I'm just looking at the tools, like it's Irvin over Pfaadt. I mean, he's higher in our top pitcher tool. He's a little bit cheaper. He's getting less ownership. That's a no-brainer. This is something, I know Adam talks about this, where like watching stuff and thinking a lot about whatever sport it is, be to your detriment. And I think it might be to my detriment here. Like I personally, and I'm not playing either of them. It's just, I like how Pfaadt's look. I like his pedigree. He's 100, top 100 pitching prospect. It's hard for me to fathom playing Cole Irvin over him. But like, that's probably the wrong thing. That's probably the wrong way to think,
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just using the data we have on our site. That's
right.
Typically what's powering my line. Every once in a while, I'll have something where I'll be like, oh, I really feel strongly about a certain thing for whatever reason. But generally, I'm going to be aligned with what our data shows. And got Cole Irvin projected better. He's got a little bit less ownership. He's a little bit cheaper. So that is going to be my preferred cheap option. Is there anything else you want to talk about as far as DraftKings pitchers go? If not, we'll look at the FanDuel side of things.
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. Like you got the guys up top that look good and the cheap guys if you like expensive bats.
All right, so let's go ahead and look at FanDuel. And what's going to be different about FanDuel relative to DraftKings is that we don't have the same ownership, at least on the top end, going to Kodai Senga because he's 10,900. But we don't really have that many cheap pitchers to look at on FanDuel in the same way. We'll talk about, Cole Irvin, who's projected for 9.9% ownership. And then you've got Pfaadt, who's projected for 8.9% at 7,500. But looking at the high-end options, all things being considered here, Matt, if you're talking about price, you're talking about upside, you're talking about ownership, the most popular pitcher, once again, is Spencer Strider at 19.4% ownership. But if you're paying up for one pitcher in a large field tournament on FanDuel, would you be going to Strider or would it be somebody else?
It'd be Cease for me. It's one pitcher, so it's always tough not playing Strider in a situation like that. But, man, the savings with Cease is it's too real for me. 2,600 facing Oakland at home. Like, give me Cease in that spot. And the ownership kind of bears that out. Like, Strider's getting more love as he should, but Cease is right behind him, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of the price difference here. Dylan Cease 9,400 compared to 12,000 for Spencer Strider. So Strider's 12,000. The next most expensive pitcher is Senga at 10,900. And like I said before, Senga being more of an elevated price point on FanDuel is why his ownership is only 5.9% on FanDuel as compared to the 20+% over on DraftKings. And of course, just the dynamic of being a single pitcher site as compared to a two pitcher site. But still, if I'm rostering one of these pitchers, I do like Cease, and I do like that you're getting him for, considerably less ownership than Spencer Strider. So I'm going to agree with you. I think that is the guy to go to in large field tournaments if you're paying up on FanDuel. For cash games, though, I would still go with Strider. Good matchup against the San Francisco Giants as far as the ballpark goes. You're getting a lot of stability as far as the strikeout rate as well. So Spencer Strider, I would still play him in cash games, especially because he's probably going to be like 30 to 40% owned in FanDuel cash. So Strider in cash games, Cease my preferred option in tournaments. If you had to save salary with somebody on FanDuel, who would be your option here, if anybody?
Here I think it would definitely be Cole Irvin. Like, he's way cheaper than Fott in this scenario. He's the cheapest guy in the slate. Like, I don't even think it's a question there. I would struggle to do that just because you're only playing one pitcher. But if I almost like him more on FanDuel because I don't expect him to strike a ton of guys out. If you like him, I think you like him because you expect him to go deep in this game and get the win. That matters even more on FanDuel.
Yeah, and it also adds an extra layer of stability, right? Because if we let me look at just really quick the sportsbook odds here. I assume the Orioles are the biggest favorite on the slate. Let's see if that's actually the case. So
I would assume that as well.
The Orioles are minus 230 favorites, and the Braves are only minus 148 just because they're on the road in San Francisco, and then also Logan Webb's on the mound for the Giants. So with that in mind, I do think that Cole Irvin provides a pretty good amount of safety on FanDuel because he could go out, if he makes it through 5 innings, there's a 60 or so % chance he's going to end up with the win bonus in that spot. So yeah, Cole Irvin at $6,200, I do think makes sense over on FanDuel if you guys are looking to save salary. With that said, I don't really think it's all that necessary on FanDuel because the salary cap kind of made up on FanDuel. They play whoever you want because they mispriced so many guys. So I don't really see the need to go to $6,200 Cole Irvin on FanDuel. But if you guys are in a situation where you need a save pitcher, I think he's the guy. Super chat here from Brian Durkay. Brian is asking us, he's in a single entry, 1,200 people buying, 1 pick and 1 team in first. Thanks. All right. So 1 pick and 1 team in, I think he means one pick and 1 team in first. What do you think that means?
I have no idea.
Brian, you don't have to leave another super chat. If you could just clarify what your question is and also what site you're playing on, throw that into the YouTube chat. Like I said, you don't have to leave us another super chat. Just tell us what site it is that you're playing on and then also what it is you're looking for. I assume he wants to know pitcher and a stack.
Oh, wait. What? I thought you said 1 pick.
He did say 1 pick.
Okay. 1 pick and 1 top team.
1 pitcher, 1 team. And it's for DK. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at the DK pitchers right now. And I could tell you what I'm doing in single entry today. I'm playing Dylan Cease. I'm stacking the Dodgers in single entry. If you had to pick 1 team to stack in single entry today, Matt, what would be your preferred stack? And then also the 1 pitcher that you want to roster.
Just based on our tools, it's the Dodgers. So, the Dodgers look really good in our tools. I will say, though, as the weather now, I think, has cleared up a bit and people are more confident in that game, not going to be surprised if this is like a Brave situation we've seen where their ownership is actually significantly higher than the tools. Now, there's nothing we can do to incorporate that. I will say, in single entry and in higher dollar stuff, I expect the Dodgers to be the highest owned team on the slate because – well, them and the White Sox, I should say, because the White Sox are pricey. Given our tools right now, I think that's the Dodgers, and it's not close.
Yeah, it's what I'm playing in single entry. I've got Dylan Cease. My pitching combination is Dylan Cease, it's Cole Irvin, and Dodger stack. That's what I'm playing in single entry tonight. So it's hard for me to recommend anything different when that's what I'm doing. So Brian Durkay, hope that helps you build out your lineup. I'm going Dodger stack, and then Cole. I know you only asked for 1 pitcher. I gave you who both my pitchers are anyway, though. Is there anything else you want to add about pitching tonight? If not, Matt, you and I will look at the lineup generator and build some lineups on it.
No, I think we covered pitching pretty well.
All right, so let's head on over to the lineup generator and we'll build out some lineups. If you guys have not signed up for the Stochastic MLB lineup generator, this is the most beginner-friendly tool that we have over at Stokastic.com, and you're going to get it for a very cheap price. You sign up for the first time using that link below, less than $5. You're going to get lineups that are built for you, up to 20 of them. You could upload them directly to DraftKings, to FanDuel, whatever site it is you're playing on, or both if you so choose. Something else you could do that we've seen some people have a lot of success with this year is maybe you want to play more than 20 lineups. Maybe you want to hand build a lineup, but still use the data and tools that we have in the lineup generator. Build out some lineups, build up to 20 of them, and you can mix and match some of the players you're getting the most exposure to and really use that as a way to build out some lineups. So we'll start here with DraftKings. I'll go all stack types, Matt. What are you thinking today? Do we want to go chalky lineups, balanced, or contrarian?
Like, just as a general question as a side, just to ask you, like when you have a slate like this, like, yeah, you know, there aren't really chalky lineups because like there is no team. I guess it's all relative, right? There's chalky compared to everything else, but there's no cores on this slate. There's nothing besides the Dodgers, and they're expensive, that really jumps out. So kind of interested to see like how this spits out the different lineups more than anything.
Yeah, so let's go all lineups and just kind of see what kind of a spread it gives us. Then, by the way, shout out Brian Durkee in the chat, said, thank you for being literally the only one who says my name right. They always say Durkee. So to be fair, I only guessed correctly. Like, it's not like I'm some savant with guessing names. I do MMA shows by myself every Friday, Matt, and I get people in the YouTube chat. There's always going to be one person who's outraged that I got one name slightly incorrect. It's hard though. It's like a lot of foreign names, and so I do my best, Brian, and I appreciate you for telling me I got it right there. We're going to build out 20 lineups here and did all lineup types, so we'll see what ends up coming across. We'll save 20 of them here, and
a lot of White Sox
exposures look like. Did look like a lot of White Sox. All right, lineups being saved, and yet right away you'll see right at the top. I mean, Tim Anderson, Andrew Benintendi, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, Lenin Sosa, Corey Lee. If we look at our stack exposures, we got to a whole bunch of White Sox, followed by the Orioles, and then the Dodgers, who my preferred option, especially for large field tournaments today, the Los Angeles Dodgers. What do you make of the White Sox today, Matt, who are going to be a popular stack, and we're getting to them a whole bunch in the lineup generator here?
So on one hand, like I said, it's such a big slate where like the ownership's going to be spread out. It's not going to be like NBA where you have to where you're going to see 60, 70% owned guys. That said, I'm personally not playing a chalky White Sox team. Like, it's just not for me. It's not how I play. They're clearly the most overowned team on the slate. And it's the White Sox. So like, I get it. They're in a good spot at home against Sean Newcomb, who had some good, years with Atlanta in the past. Not that he's, good now, but for me, like if I were playing cash, I would load up the White Sox and then like the best bats from the Dodgers, Orioles, etc. But in tournaments, it's just not how I play, even though they look really good, price considered. The reason they look so good is because they're so cheap.
I have them in 4% of my lineups. 5-man White Sox stacks, 4% of lineups. So I'm fairly underweight to the White Sox today. And I mean, as you'd mentioned before, though, it's not like there's teams that are projected for 20, 30% ownership on the slate or anything like that. But I am underweight to the White Sox in large field tournaments. But understand why, just points per dollar, that sense, why it is our lineup generator gets to a bunch of exposure to them. As far as the pitching options go here, we're getting to Spencer Strider. We're getting to Dylan Cease. Surprisingly, getting to Logan Webb. I didn't really expect that to come up here. He is somebody who I don't really think I'm playing. Let me check that, though. In my lineups, I have Logan Webb. I have some exposure to him, around 10%. So it was more than I thought. But either way, I'm not close to this 25% mark. We're getting to some of you. Darvish at 20%. Here's Kodai Senga at 15%. See, at least in our lineup generator here, when we built out lineups, there was not a real need to save a bunch of salary, even with us getting to some of the Dodgers, where we have exposure to Freddie Freeman here. And I know Peralta is a less expensive Dodgers bat, but still, even with us getting exposure to the Dodgers, we didn't really get to a whole lot of the cheap pitchers. I think kind of speaks to what you were mentioning before in terms of your builds and the 3 lineups you had made. That's not necessarily needed to go cheap at pitcher, especially if you're going to be stacking the White Sox. You don't have to go cheap at pitcher. But anything else that you see in these lineups that stands out to you? If not, that's okay, and we could go build some FanDuel lineups.
Here's my thing about the White Sox. Like, they suck. And when I play a team like the White Sox, like, if they go off, I want my path to the top to be clear. Like, here, It's not at all, because they're going to be owned. And even like they're all shitty, but even like the real shitty guys are getting love. So that's a no for me.
Yeah, I got Corey Lee's 2K at catcher, Leanin Sosa's 2K at second base. So if you stack the White Sox, you could, really play whoever else you want with them. Let's see what comes up in FanDuel. We'll go all stack types. Let's build contrarian lineups on FanDuel and see what that ends up getting us exposure to. Won't lock anybody in. And still White Sox right away. No White Sox. Now line up White Sox. No White Sox. White Sox. White Sox. White Sox. No White Sox. All right. Save through 20 of these really quick. Still seems like we're getting to a good amount of White Sox over on FanDuel. See what the stack exposure ends up being. We got to still less, though. We got 45% White Sox, 35% Orioles, 35% Diamondbacks, 10% Phillies, 10% Pirates, 10% Mariners as far as our player exposures go. A little bit more spread out here on FanDuel than it was on DraftKings. Part of that is going to be because I did select contrarian lineups as opposed to just chalky. But Strider popping up as our most rostered pitcher. We got to him in 50% of lineups. And there's Logan Webb, followed by, so Dylan Cease, Logan Webb both coming in here at 15%. Strider, the one we got to the most at 50%. I think a pretty good indication if you guys are playing cash games over on FanDuel, Strider's probably the guy you want to go to. Is there anything else you notice about these lineups that maybe differs from the DraftKings lineup that surprised you in any way?
No, I mean, it makes sense. The pricing's a little bit different, but generally it looks similar and makes a lot of sense just because the White Sox look really good. I will compare that to the Orioles, though, who have been coming in second in these lineups. Mm-hmm. I much prefer Baltimore. They're also coming in a little bit more owned, than they probably should be, but they're less owned than the White Sox. They have a higher top stack percentage. They're much better than the White Sox. I like their hitters more. So between those teams, I personally like Baltimore more at lesser ownership. They're one of the teams I'm using. Now, again, if I were waiting up until lock to build, I'd probably go to the Dodgers at this point, but I wasn't sure on the weather. I didn't want to be dealing with it during this show. So I chose Baltimore as kind of my main team. Mm-hmm. Given the ownership, I like the Dodgers slightly more, but they're very comparable to me.
Yeah, my main team is going to be the Dodgers, but in just a second here, we're going to be talking about some contrarian pitching options as well. So I'll get this sorted on the screen and pull that back up. We'll look at the top stacks. But first, let's answer the super chat from our friend Chris Williams, who shares a birthday with me. We just found out. He says, great show like always. Thanks, guys. And then question, can you rank the DK late slate pitchers? And then also he said he forgot to say happy birthday. He got a Coke and a smile. Had to work. Hope yours was way better. Yeah, I hung out with my family. I had a pretty good time. If we're looking at the late slate, all right, let's see. What are the options on the late slate? We have...
It's only 3 games.
Yeah, late slate is Reds, Diamondbacks, Royals, Mariners, Braves, and Giants. So of those teams, what are your favorites?
Our tools absolutely love. I mean, they absolutely love everyone basically, but Brandon Pfaadt, he's getting way too much ownership. This is probably where I play Hunter Green. Like, I don't know if you need to do it on the main slate, but on this slate, he looks great. Like him, Webb, and Strider all look really good. I think fading Pfaadt on the late slate is the way to go personally.
Yeah, and then something else too is if you look at some of the ownership projections here is so the Reds are projected for 15% ownership as a team with 19% top stack odds. So as is, they're going under owned. They have the top leverage score. But then also, like you mentioned, you're getting added leverage too because they're going up against a pitcher who appears to be crazy over-owned for the late slate. Everybody's looking to save salary and go ahead and roster fat in their lineup. So with that in mind, I do really like the Reds on the late slate with all things being considered, just their ownership relative to top stack odds and then also the ownership of the pitcher they're going up against. So let's say, Chris, the Reds number 1 as a next favorite pitcher. Next favorite stack. Maybe the Braves against Logan Webb, just because it's the Braves picking up the second least ownership on the slate against a good pitcher. But it's the Braves on a 3-game slate with low ownership.
It's definitely the Braves for me there just because of that, what you said. Like, even on the main slate, like the Braves, you'll never see them this low in our top stack tool. But if you played some Braves, or if anyone played some Braves, it's the Braves. You could always play them. I'll take your Cincinnati call a step further, though. I actually think they look like pretty good on the main slate. not a main team, but if I were having 150, I definitely want some, especially with Fox ownership. Like the Reds run and hit homers also. Yeah. So when they score, they're scoring in ways you want. Like they're getting way underrepresented in my eyes, all across the board.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page with that. And then in terms of the pitchers, I mean, if we're going to be playing Cincinnati, it is viable to pay up for Strider. As far as what the ownership looks like for the pitchers on the late slate here, we've got Strider at 45%, Fat's at 55%, Bryce Miller's at 42%, and then everybody else is somewhat contrarian. If you're going to be contrarian a pitcher, I'm on the same page as you. Hunter Green, who has tremendous upside.
Yeah.
He is a pitcher the lowest owned pitcher on the late slate is Hunter Green. The most popular offense is by a mile the Arizona Diamondbacks. We could really give people a contrarian lineups here, Matt, by just telling them to load up on the Reds on the late slate.
I mean, and I like it. Like, I can't get past the fact that Green was just popular against the Blue Jays and at home in a much worse ballpark. So I get it. He had a really rough outing, but his stuff is really good. Yeah, I'm all Reds. If I'm playing the night slate, which we'll see how the main slate shakes out by that time, then yeah, man, I think I'd be riding the Reds there. It's just too obvious based on our tools.
All right, Chris, go ahead. Load up on the Reds for today. Pitching with Hunter Green. Offense seems like a pretty good spot relative to all of our ownership projections. We've got some questions in the Discord channel relating to the main slate. First one is Hermine Steinem. He wants to know how we feel about the Boston Red Sox or the Mets in single entry. I like the Mets quite a bit as a contrarian team. It actually is the low-owned stack I get the most exposure to. They're only projected for 2% ownership as a team, 3.5% top stack odds. There's also reasonable pricing here where we have them also the 4.5% chance to be a top value stack. They're going up against a pitcher in Patrick Sandoval, who individually is okay. He's had a little bit of a down year this year relative to other years, but there's still talent at the top of the Mets offense. I know this team has been wildly just disappointing this year, but still, I think this is the Mets offense. It has talent in it. There's no ownership going here. And another thing, too, is once you get into that bullpen of the Angels, it's kind of a disaster for them, which I also think could really play in the Mets' favor because I don't know how long Sandoval is going to pitch into games. He hasn't made all that many starts where he's gone deep this year. So I do like the Mets as a contrarian team. Is it a team that you're considering at all?
No, because there's other not unowned stacks that I like. But the sentiment I completely agree with. The stack that I'm on, which I think is similar, is Colorado. Again, the Mets are much more talented than Colorado. I agree with you. They still have talent. Just because they've been awful this year doesn't mean that they don't have talent. Lindor's still having a really, really good year from a DFS perspective. Pete Alonso, et cetera. You don't have that with Colorado. But as far as our top stack tool on ownership goes, they look basically the same as the Mets. A little bit lower of a top stack percentage, a little bit lower ownership. And they're facing Cole Irvin, who I get why you like, but you only like him, and I'm speaking for you because of his price tag, right? And the price tag in the matchup. If Cole Irvin were $8K, you'd have no interest in paying for him. It's not like he's that good. So I'm kind of, playing against that ownership and what I see as a good spot for Colorado at no ownership. That said, they're very unlikely to succeed, and I know that. But so is almost every other stack on the board. So that's what MLB DFS is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of, I have some stacks of the Rockies as well. Not like anything really significant, but like I said, my number one most roster contrarian stack on DraftKings is the Mets. So I think that is a team that definitely makes sense on Steinem if you're considering getting to them. And then Mr. Cool Cam, he's in our Discord channel. He wants to know what our favorite contrarian stack is on FanDuel. I'm going to lean towards the same answer and go with the Mets. Only project for 1% ownership over on FanDuel. Do you have a favorite contrarian stack on FanDuel, Matt, where nearly everybody outside of the Cardinals, the White Sox, the Dodgers, the Orioles, everybody else is considered contrarian?
The Mets actually look even a little bit better than they do on FanDuel on DK based on our numbers. I'm going to say the Mets, the team I talked about just now, the Rockies, but then also, and this is a completely different play than the Mets or the Rockies, the Rangers. They're much better than the Rockies, definitely better than the Mets, but they face a better pitcher in Sonny Gray. So all those three teams, I think, look good from a tournament perspective for different reasons.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, I am going a little bit back and forth, trying to show you both the DraftKings and the FanDuel stack ownership. So I was originally on the DraftKings page, and I went to FanDuel, now going back to DraftKings as we're answering the different questions about the different sites. And if you guys have any questions, 15 minutes left to go here. throw them into the Discord channel. We could certainly answer them, and some super chats. I see we have those as well to hit on. One other thing I want to note tonight, guys, we've got NFL live before lock for the preseason slate. We got Matt Kajeski and Neil Orfield. Those two guys are going to be breaking it down. So go check out NFL live before lock after we're done. Going to be really valuable information for you guys if you're playing the preseason slate. And do you know what starts tomorrow, Matt?
No, I don't.
College football. We got a college football main slate.
Duh.
And our guy, Matt Kajeski, the sharpest guy in the business. I say about him all the time, there is nothing that you could talk to for Matt Kajeski that he will not know. If you tell him there's a Pop Warner game down the street, he's going to tell you who the running back is. He's going to tell you how many rushing yards he's going to have. He's going to tell you which wide receivers he's expecting to have the most target share. And that's in just the local Pee Wee football games. The guy knows everything. And he also powers our preseason projections. He powers our college football projections as well. And with college football starting tomorrow, we've got a deal here for you guys. 50% off when you sign up for a college football package. If you guys are going to be playing college football tomorrow, you want access to all the data and tools we have over at Stokastic.com. So sign up using that link below to get 50% off our college football package. Charles Kelly has left us a super chat. He wants to know Kodai Senga or Yu Darvish. And then he also asked Boston or St. Louis. He's asking for DK, GPP, and then he says, happy birthday to me. So, Charles, thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the birthday wishes as well. Senga or Darvish? Do you have a preference between the two, Matt?
Yeah, it's definitely Senga for me. Darvish, I'm a Darvish fan in general. He's like not in great form right now. They're not really extending him too deep into games. You look at his game log, and not even just trying to be like a game log chaser. It's not really what you want to see on this big of a slate. Senga has higher upside, better matchup for Senga, a little bit more expensive, but give me Senga there.
Yep, I'm on the same page as you. I have more exposure to Senga on the slate. I'm not all that different from the field on Senga. I have him in just under 20% of my lineups, but still, I think he makes sense for today. We've seen the kind of strikeout upside he has. The walks, they do definitely rear their ugly head at times, but this Angels team, I think that this, do you remember what we looked at the Angels as last year, Matt, down the stretch of the year? Every single time a team pitched against the Angels, no matter what the price point of every single time down the stretch of the season last year, pitchers were chalk against the Angels. I think that's going to happen for the next month or so.
I don't disagree, but I do think like their lineup will worsen over the month. Like you'll get those really shitty guys to get called up when more guys get hurt. But I'm with you. We're starting to see that. So I get your point, and that is, I think that is like another notch in Senga's belt. As far as like the Cardinals and Red Sox go, we didn't really talk about either of them. The Cardinals are getting a lot of love. It's not a team I really, I don't say I don't want to play them. I think they're getting too much ownership for who they are, but I understand why people are playing them. What are your thoughts on St. Louis?
Out of 150 lineups, I have one Cardinal stack. So it's not really a team that I'm getting to in any kind of meaningful way. I'm not really getting to a lot of the Red Sox either, though. Like neither of these teams are ones that are all that important to me. I have 3 Red Sox stacks and I have 1 Cardinal stack out of 150 lineups. So neither of them to me are really all that high of priorities. If I have to pick between the two of them, I'm going to go with the Red Sox, mostly because they have the lesser ownership. And we've got similar projected outcomes between the two of these teams. We've got the Cardinals with a 5.6% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate. Red Sox 5%. But with that said, we do have the Red Sox with about half the projected ownership as the Cardinals. So if you have to pick one of these teams, I'm going to lean towards Boston. But like I said, neither of them are priorities for me. One of the issues too with Boston is even though they do have slightly better top stack odds and what their ownership is, they're really expensive, especially the hitters we care about today. If I'm paying up for offense, I'd rather go to like the Dodgers, for instance, we have with the highest top stack odds on the slate. Yeah. So just neither teams that are all that important to me.
I think you not getting to either of them really is a byproduct of two things, the Dodgers, and it's such a big slate, right? Like you just can't get to everyone. Even if you're playing 150, you don't want to just use like every team a couple times. You got to make some stands.
Got some more super chats coming in. This one is from our guy, El Negro Loco, the News God. If you guys aren't following News God over on Twitter, go check him out, especially because we've got basketball, a couple months away here from the basketball season starting. And you're going to want to be getting all that late information as it breaks throughout the NBA season. So go follow News God over on Twitter. Nerd Ass Greg, what up, homie? Over under 6.5 strikeouts for Kodai Senga. If I have to take one side of it, considering the matchup against the Angels, 28.1% K rate for Senga, give me the over on Senga, 6.5 strikeouts. Do you have a lean either way there, Matt?
No strong lean, but if forced to choose, I would also take the over.
All right, so we're going to go over on Senga, and then also shout out to Chris Williams, who has gifted out 5 YouTube memberships to the people out in the YouTube chat. So some people's names are about to turn green in YouTube. Thank you for the support, Chris. And if anybody else wants to support the channel, the simplest and easiest way to do it, just a couple clicks of the button. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is totally free. It helps us out, and it takes you like half a second to do it. So if you can do that, we do appreciate it. Let's get back to talking about some of these stacks. And the Dodgers, a team that I really like a whole bunch. If you guys are paying up for any one stack today, we have the Dodgers with, relative to the other teams on the slate, by far the best odds, being the top scoring team. If you guys look at our top stacks, which I have on screen right now, we have a nearly 10% chance to be a top stack, which is not overwhelming odds, but it's about 50% higher than what any other team is working with on the slate. So if I'm paying up for one offense today, it's going to be the Dodgers. Is it the same for you, Matt? Or are there any other highly priced offenses you're targeting?
Are making my lineups right now, it would be the Dodgers. Okay. I made them before the show, though, just because I didn't, like I said, and I got on Baltimore more because I view them as similar. And I wasn't sure about the weather because it was still like kind of murky. So that's why I landed on Baltimore. Again, I think they're comparable based on ownership. I do prefer the Dodgers at this moment, but I'm not going to change everything.
All right. Yeah, we've got the Dodgers a little bit less owned, a little bit better top stack odds, but also a little bit more expensive, which is almost always going to be the case with the Dodgers. Fairly expensive stack that there is on the Dodgers. As far as teams that I don't like relative to ownership, talked about them before, the Chicago White Sox are projected for 12% ownership tonight as a team. This is the only team on the DraftKings slate that's projected for double-digit ownership. I'll pull up the FanDuel ownership in a second as well. This is the team I'm most underweight to on the entire slate. If the White Sox go out and score 1 million runs, hey, fuck me, I guess then, because I'm going to have a bad night. But the White Sox at 12% ownership, you said it before. This is not a good offense. It's projected for a lot of ownership. If I'm playing large field tournaments, I think one of the easiest ways to make your lineups different is just coming underweight to the field on the White Sox. So I'm underweight to them as a stack. I'm also underweight to each of their individual hitters. Are you considering the White Sox in any of your three lineups?
Nah. I mean, it's just like you said. I mean, it's the White Sox. Like, if they happen to have a great night tonight, like, so be it, and I'll play again tomorrow. But, you know, when I play teams like the White Sox, I want a clear path to the top, and you get far from that here. If the White Sox go off and you have them, obviously you need them, but, you know, you're going to need a lot you're going to need a lot else to go right.
Something else I'll add also, if you guys are playing single entry today, I wouldn't be surprised if the White Sox are really steamed in small field tournaments. Like, they could
Same with Strider.
Yeah, like we could see the White, and it's going to go hand in hand, right?
Yes, exactly.
If the White Sox are going to be more popular, so is Strider in single entry. That's why I didn't play either of them in my single entry lineup. I think we're going to see White Sox bats like 20-ish% owned individually in single entry. And then I think we're going to see, you know, if you have like one White Sox hitter in your lineup, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't go make a full 5-man White Sox stack. But then I think you're going to see Strider maybe like 40% owned in single entry and the White Sox around 20%. So just something to consider in smaller field tournaments. And then if we look at the FanDuel ownership, we got the White Sox also projected for double-digit ownership. We got the Orioles at 10.3% ownership. The Dodgers coming in at 9% ownership. Over on FanDuel, where pricing is basically a facade, it's just like random numbers attached to players, and they're generally always too cheap relative to expectations. It's not even that hard to make a 4-man Dodger stack on FanDuel, plug in some cheap hitters from elsewhere, and still pay up for Strider. So same page as me. If I'm paying up for an offense on FanDuel, I'm going to be going to the Dodgers. For you, though, Matt, is there anything that stands out to you on the high end as far as FanDuel is concerned?
No, I'm still like thinking about what we talked about with Cole Irvin. Yeah. Like, if you played him on FanDuel, I almost feel like you don't even stack. You just play 8 like elite one-offs because of their pricing. It's just, you know, like you said, their pricing has left so much to be desired. It's almost silly in how to build and how you can build lineups over there.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Cole Irvin line, just play whoever the hell you want if he's a pitcher. I wonder if you could also, because I built lineups for DraftKings today, and I haven't built lineups for FanDuel as the lineups have come out, which almost always presents, you know, a lot more value. I wouldn't be surprised if you could roster Cole Irvin at pitcher with just basically every expensive hitter at every position. Probably not
like the most expensive hitter. Yeah, that's unreal.
We've got Malukar, by the way. Shout out to our guy Malukar. He gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. So let me make sure we didn't miss any super chats, which we did not. If you guys have any final questions at us. But in the meantime, let's do some home run picks, Matt. Usually how we close out the show here. And then don't forget, right after the show ends, because we're going to be wrapping up in a couple minutes, go check out the NFL Live Before Lock. We got a final weekend of NFL preseason games coming at you right after this. Who are you picking to hit a homer today, Matt? Who do you think is most likely to hit one over the fences?
Most likely, that's a good question.
Or it could be, by the way, it could be whoever you want. However you want to do your home run pick. How I usually do it is I look at my ownership. I figure out who I'm overweight to the field to I think is reasonably likely to homer, and I pick them. That's usually how I do my home run pick.
I'm just going to go completely off the wall.
Okay.
I'm going to go Ehrenberg Montero for the Rockies. Not the most likely to hit a home run tonight, but that's my call. So that's who I'm going to go with.
There have been a couple of times that I've bet on Montero because he's projected well in Odd Shopper and he's homered at like 10-1 and 11-1 to homer. So I don't hate it at all. You're getting a lot of leverage as well off of Cole Irvin. For me, the individual hitter, Matt, that I'm most overweight to is Pete Alonso. Only project for 3% ownership. Pete Alonso, whenever, and I feel like I've picked Pete Alonso like 3 times to homer over the course of the last couple of weeks. But you get this kind of like negative stink around the Mets. People don't want to roster him, but he's going up against a lefty in Sandoval today. Pete Alonso was always mashed lefties. Nobody's playing him. Nobody's stacking the Mets today. I'm picking Pete Alonso as my dong pick of the day. Hottest dong pick of the night. It goes to Pete Alonso. So that's my pick for a homer.
Man, the more you talk about the Mets, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. No, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to, so I was just going to say Pete Alonso, my pick to homer, and the Mets are the low-owned stack I have the most exposure to. But go ahead.
The more you talk about the Mets, the more I like them. I play the Mets a lot because they are still, their lineup at least is still good. Their pitching staff right now leaves a lot to be desired, but they've got good hitters, at least at the top of their lineup. The bottom of their lineup now is weak, but they're not going to be owned at all. So I do really like that call. Again, this is a team that has power, and like Lindor and Nimmo run. Lindor runs a good amount, Nimmo a little bit.
You know, we've got some home run picks from the YouTube chat. Nicholas Robertson is going with Mountcastle. Tom Spalding is going with Rafael Devers. We've got Kenneth Woodhouse going Jay Cave. That's a little bit off the board there. Arnold Lane going with Tristan Cassis. I mean, Cassis, I haven't looked at the numbers recently second half of the season, but I know Cassis, at least at one point in time, was like leading all of baseball in WRC Plus in the second half of the year. Malukar going with Kyle Schwarber. Arkith Fells has got Paul Goldschmidt. We've got Father Time. He's on my side. He's going with Pete Alonso here. We've got, let's see, I don't know which David Porter said Anderson. I don't know which Anderson he means. There's a lot of Andersons. Chris Williams has got Corbin Carroll. So we're about to wrap up here, Matt, but is there anything that we haven't hit on the show that you want to make sure we bring to the people before we pass it over to the NFL guys?
Just one stack that we didn't bring up once, I haven't heard mentioned at all today, that our top stack tool likes, the Cubs. Not sure why our top stack tool likes them so much in Pittsburgh, but they're like the team that I've looked at all day that I'm not using, and I'm like, damn, the Cubs go off. Like, just the tool showed me.
Yeah, we've got the Cubs here projected with a 5.1% chance to be the top scoring team of the entire slate. And I'm about even with the field on Cubs stacks. I didn't end up with anything real significant. And then I'll pull up one more time here. I'll move over to FanDuel and show you guys the FanDuel exposures before we close it out here for the day. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor. Don't forget to, did I just click the wrong thing? Looks like I did. So, all right. Let's go back to overall. I really had, it was seamless producing the show while hosting for the first time. And then at the very end, I'm trying to close out. I'm looking at multiple things at the same time. Actually, I clicked on the wrong thing and closed out of the tab I was on. But nevertheless, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, the easiest way for you to make money today, signing up at Caesars, using that link that they have below. $50 on your first bet. They give you $250 in free bets, so go check it out. But if you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER, because I always have to do that with the shout out of Caesars. Just the legal part of it is I have to say that. But also, obviously, very concerned about all you guys as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go check out the guys on the NFL show. So enjoy that. Have a great weekend. We'll be back here Monday. Peace out, everybody.